It's so much easier.
It's like weight
and
lifted.
it's more fun.
Compassion, vulnerability, also authenticity. What is it that you stand for?
I know it's going to take time. And it takes everyday continual revolutionizing yourself.
First of all, take care of yourself, because burnout is not just a buzzword. It is prevalent.
I want to make sure that I get it right. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to let anybody down. But it's tiring and it's exhausting. And so I find comfort and hope when you say it's not just easier, but it gets fun.
Can we create teams that can just be based on fun? You know, no, really, like, can we just have fun?
I'm reminded of that quote, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly.
Butterflies.
On this episode, we're joined by Brenda Bence, Global C-Suite Executive Coach, Hall of Fame speaker, and trusted advisor to top leaders around the world.
Brenda, you are top 3 global ranked certified C-suite executive coach to billion-dollar businesses. You have coached super executive senior leaders. What would you say is kind of like the common thread that these leaders who are doing it well have when it comes to that mindset, or when it comes to leading with presence? What are they doing right?
Well, I think there's 2 things. I think when I think about leadership across so many different continents, I really had incredible opportunity to coach across 6 continents, 60 nationalities, different industries. And what I've found is that the what of leadership stays the same, whether I'm coaching in South America or North America or Asia or Middle East, wherever. The what of leadership has stayed the same. It's really about the how they achieve that. And so much of it is based on our local society, our local beliefs in leadership. You know, certain parts of the world where there's a real command and control belief, and one size just won't fit all. You have to really adapt. So I think the leaders who have done the best are those who are really adaptable. They use situational leadership. They ask more than they tell. You mentioned about knowing everything. I love that, Cindy. I'm so glad you raised that, because embracing what I call a seeker mindset, I think, is foundational to success today versus a knower mindset. I think you're right. The old form of leadership was the knower mindset. I know the answers, come to me. But that never works, because it's not empowering to others, and you can't really scale effectively if you do that. Yeah. You know, knowers, they crave certainty. They have to be right. And seekers thrive on curiosity. They know that they don't have the answers. In fact, they don't want to know all the answers, because it's too much for one person to have all the answers in their brain. You know, knowers say things like, I already know this. Whereas seekers will say things, I don't know. Well, let's find out. Let's figure it out. And it's hard for a lot of leaders who have grown up in kind of a command and control, I have to be a certain type of leader, to embrace that. It can be really hard for them, but it's so critical, because leading with humility, leading with being open to feedback, it's not about competing to be the smartest in the room. In fact, leaders who have that will fail. It's really what you said, Cindy, about creating space for others to shine. That is where I see the greatest success in leadership.
This is such a powerful conversation, because it reflects upon so many scenarios in our lives, in my life, in people that I've spoken to. They've all reflected upon this, but I've never heard these 2 terms coming together in one dialogue. And until now with Brenda is knower and seeker.
Yeah.
What's the easiest way to shift for someone who's watching right now? Like, I know it's going to take time, and it takes everyday continual, I'd say, revolutionizing yourself. But what's the easiest way? Is it the mindset?
What's the first step?
Yeah, what's the first step?
Well, first step is awareness. Isn't that for everything in the world, right? We have to be aware. And a lot of people, even just laying out what's a knower, what's a seeker, which one of these are you most embodying? And I usually work in the workplace, but in the workplace, which one are you most embodying? And it's very interesting to see how many people say, oh yeah, I've been a knower. And then they'll say, what would be the benefits of staying as a knower? What would be the benefits of being a seeker given where you are? And inevitably, it's that awareness of, oh gosh, I really do need to shift to a seeker. What got you here basically won't get you there, right? being a knower when you're young, you get paid for being a knower. You get paid to be an expert at something, right? Because you're supposed to learn and know. But as you get older, as you get higher up in an organization, it is no longer about knowing. It's about, you can't know it all. And the pace of change today, there's no way we can know it all. So give ourselves a break and recognize, here's the fun thing. When the real shift happens, is when they realize how much easier it is to be a seeker.
Oh,
It's so much easier.
it's like weight
and it's more
lifted.
fun.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I'm getting glimpses of it, Brenda. I'm getting glimpses, and now that I'm, in different leadership positions, I am very much the type of person that, has the weight of the world on my shoulders. I want to make sure that I get it right. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to let anybody down. But it's tiring and it's exhausting. And so I find comfort and hope when you say it actually is not just easier, but it gets fun. It gets more fun. And I'm reminded of that quote, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly.
That's right. And I'll tell you what else. It's not only fun, it saves your energy. So, I remember I was working with an exec, let's call him James, and James was a very, very high level consultant. And he'd grown up in the consulting world. Well, what are the consulting world known for? Knowing. They have to know the answers, right? Clients pay them to know the answers. And so he was trying to grow his business bigger and bigger and bigger. He was already a multi-million-dollar business, but he was trying to grow it bigger and bigger. And he was complaining he wasn't going to the gym. He wasn't seeing his family enough. And I'm like, well, how are you spending your time? He was literally going home, having a brief dinner with his family, then spending the entire evening before a client meeting, studying everything about that industry, studying everything about those individuals, studying. When, long story, we shifted to him embracing a seeker mindset, worked him through the power of asking powerful questions. He went down to a 10-hour workday, which sounds still a lot, but it wasn't working on the weekends, which was extraordinary. He was working 7 days a week, like 16 hours a day. He got down to 10 hours a day. He had more time left over. And he said, what you said, Cindy, it was more fun. It was more fun. He could go to the clients and ask them really interesting, powerful questions. And when they started answering those powerful questions, it was more fun for them too. So it was just a real win-win. And I think we can all do this every day, all the time.
That's really interesting for me because the question is, can we create and run companies or teams that can just be based on fun? No, really, like, can we just have fun? Like, have that fun mindset? And me and Sydney and Pam, our founder, we did mention that, every time we go into fun mode and exciting mode, I mean, although there are numbers there and there are deliverables and KPIs, but when the three of us get fun or when the team gets fun, it's really, anything is okay. Does that make sense, Brenda? Can you reflect that back to
Absolutely.
us?
What
are we talking about?
Well, I love it. You just described what I call a learning organization. And a learning organization is where everything happens. We sit down. First of all, when we have fun, we're more in our natural self. We're supposed to have fun. We're here to have fun. We're here to grow and have fun and learn. And that's it, really. We're here to expand, right? And grow and all that. So when you can have fun in work, first of all, people do better work, I've found, when you have fun. I just end up gamify things, right? Like I just gamified my vacation last week. I set up a wheel that you could turn. I had 8 things that I wanted to do. And I spent it in the morning. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. I like
that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. When we have fun, we see the world a different place. So work can be fun. In fact, I think work should be fun. And I always ask my team, are you having fun? Are we having fun here, right? But what we've also talked about is a learning organization. It comes back to what you mentioned earlier, Woody, about, I made a mistake or I'm disappointed. The truth is what we don't want just helps inform what we do want. That's all. It just helps us understand, I don't want that, so I'm going to do something different in the future. That's a learning organization. No matter what we do when we get done in our organization, we'll sit down and say, what went well? What are we proud of? What are we most happy about? And then what didn't go the way we would have liked to? What did we learn from that? And what are we going to do differently as we move forward and make it even better the next time? No harm, no foul, no blaming, no finger pointing. We're just going to learn as we grow. And that's the kind of workplace people want to work in today. And I just get to see leaders creating that today too.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I feel like we've been working on this outdated model of leadership, right? Where it's the leader's supposed to have all the answers. It's she or he is the one that will fix it, will be the one, the know-it-all, where that's not just unreasonable, it's also unsustainable. And what happens is then you are expected to be the one woman, one man show. And when we can see now that it's through collaboration, it's through teamwork that amazing things happen. And I like what you said about just basically leadership must start from within, and how instead of just all the KPI dashboards, all the metrics that we usually have in a corporation, perhaps just as valuable qualities are ability to hold space for others, to nurture potential so that they can be all that they can be. And I like what you said, just how we show up, right? At work and for your teams, at the dinner table at night. That's one thing that I have to work on. It's come from like a whole day of stress and making decisions. And then it's like, okay, now I need to hold space in spite of the day I've had, for my family. And it really is the inside job. What about your personal leadership journey? Like, what have you discovered about yourself? Perhaps something that you had to discard along the way, or what's one belief that you've had to let go of for your personal journey?
I think, particularly in the most recent years, I've had to unlearn a lot. We spend lifetimes learning, and then things start moving so fast. I mean, today's world, AI, technology, the way things are moving, I don't think it's ever moved this fast before. It's fast. And so what it causes us to do is we can no longer rely on what got you here will get you there. We have to completely wipe the slate. And what that means is we have to unlearn. It's one thing to learn, but it's another thing to unlearn. You know what I mean? Like the processes, the systems, the structures, what we've always been comfortable with. We have to learn to let that all go. And that's hard for a lot of folks. But it's really important, I think, to be able to recognize that's not working anymore. And we're going to have to create something new. So I think that's one thing I've really had to learn. The other thing I would say about leadership that's interesting, Cindy, is I think leadership has become very personal, meaning, and I see this in larger organizations as well as a lot smaller organizations, it's very personal these days. Like, I think the advent of social media teaches us that we all have a voice. We all matter and we all have a voice. And that voice impacts everything. Like if I've got, whether it's 100 employees or 500 or 5,000 or 50,000 employees, how do you respond to that employee need to be heard, employee need to have a voice? I mean, it's very personal. And so that's one of the things we work on trickling down throughout the organization is how you make it very personal so that people get what they want and they don't vote with their feet and leave. The good people don't leave.
What would be the one takeaway that you think all leaders should have right now as leaders in these tough times? Because as you mentioned before, this is one of the fastest exponentially. The speed is, I don't even have a word for it. The policy for social media yesterday and today is so different. Like, what would be the one takeaway that you think we can take from this conversation in terms of leading today in this fast changing world?
For leaders, I would say to remember that, first of all, take care of yourself, because what we're learning is that burnout is not just a buzzword. It is prevalent. I've actually been in this business coaching externally for 23 years. And I've never seen the level of burnout that I'm seeing today in leaders. So take care of oneself. There's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. All four of those make up who we are as humans. And are you paying enough attention? I have a little game I take them through about, are you paying enough attention to those four areas? Because it's foundational to take care of yourself. So that's the first thing. And a lot of that starts with the inside, not the outside. Physical is external, but mental, emotional, and spiritual, those are internal. And that's really where the rubber hits the road, as we say. But the second thing I would say is to remember as a leader that words don't teach, it's experience that teaches. And, you want to be a better leader, then be the better leader. I was working a while back with an ELT, an executive leadership team of a very major corporation. And I remember they were so proud. They had just, a few months earlier, they had just issued their value statement and their credos, like this is what we stand for. This is how we are. And they were expressing frustration because the people were just not following those words. But when we start looking at it, and I reminded them that words don't teach, it's experience that teaches, is how much were those leaders embodying those words. Because you see, people will look up to see how to behave. They will, one thing is to read a set of words, but when you look up and you realize, oh, they say this on paper, but I see how much the SVPs are working till midnight. They're sending us emails at 2 a.m, or I see how they're embracing leadership, and that means I've got to do the same. And so words don't teach; it's experience that teaches, and that would be one of the key things I would encourage leaders to think about.
Again, I'm seeing my parenting role. It's just such an overlap about, don't do as I, what is it? What's the quote?
Don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say, right?
Do it. Yeah. And it's completely, it doesn't matter what
Is
you
that the
say.
one with the walk the talk or no?
It just basically, parents like to say, you got to do this or do that. And
the number of times when leaders go, I am not going to parent the way my parents did. I am not. And then they grow up and they parent the way their parents did. But part of it's generational learning. We don't know any other way. So it really takes that ability to stop the cycle and say, wait a minute, am I being the parent I want to be? Am I being the leader that I want to be? What would it be like to have me as a mom? What would it be like to have me as a father, or as a board member, or as a leader? That's the question. What would that be like? And then that allows you to break the cycle and choose differently.
And on that note, I'm reminded of one, being vulnerable. Leaders are able to be vulnerable because, once you're able to just kind of shed that label or that build the wall that you've built around yourself because you're supposed to be this strong, all-knowing leader, and just admit that. So compassion, vulnerability, also authenticity. What is it that you stand for? Not just as a leader, but as a person, as an individual. Like what means the most to you? What are your values? How important is being authentic in leadership?
Well, I think it's really foundational. And here's the thing. Think about a leader that you really related to, that you really love working with or for. You can just feel that they were authentic, right? And that's my experience. You just know they're being who they really are. They're being led by their values. They're doing the inner work. You can smell an inauthentic leader a long ways away, right? There's a new thing out called performative authenticity, which I think is quite fascinating. There's so much C-suite leaders need to be in the public, right? It's a tough time to be a C-suite leader because you're in the public all the time. Your face is everywhere, your social media, etc. And there's a thing called performative authenticity because so many people have pushed this, we must be authentic. They don't really know what that means. And so they put on performance of being authentic. And that's, I'm going to need your help. Like when I fall off, come tell me, talk to me, let's have that conversation. And it's really interesting to see the shift, their willingness to do that, the authenticity of that.
In 2025, and we are half year in, what's the one question that most leaders come to you and they ask you about? Like, I have a problem with this, please help me. What is that big question of 2025, Brenda?
The pace of change. It's just overwhelming. That's why we're seeing more burnout. We're seeing when the world around you is in a complete state of seeming chaos, what do? Everything's changing. And even the strategies, the plans, the vision you had 2, 3, 4 years ago, they're no longer valid. And so everything's changing. What do you do when everything's changed? When everything outside of you is in a complete state of disruption, what do? You have to disrupt yourself from the inside out. You're going to have to look at these things in a different way. You're going to have a different perception to get you through this and to thrive, not just survive. So it really does come down once again to the inside work related to leadership, because there's no other choice. You really don't have. What happens if you try to control, right? Let's just try to control what's happening. It's not controllable. How do you control all the change that's taking place? You can't. So you focus on the one thing you can control, which is what's going on inside of you and the way you act, react, look, sound, and most importantly, the way you think.
I was not expecting that answer, because most of the time, the people we have on the podcast or anyone who's doing more like spiritual growth or mental health work, when everything is chaos on the outside, you want to still yourself on the inside. But Brenda said, no, you have to disrupt yourself.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, wait, what more change? But it's a different kind of change.
Yeah.
It's
Different kind of disruption. You've got to look at this. You've got to look at the self-limiting beliefs that might be holding you back.
Yeah.
The way you are acting, reacting, looking, sounding, is it working? You've got to really be able to peel back the layers of the onion and say, okay, what changes need to take place? And the changes are going to come from inside, because you're going to have to change.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying stillness isn't a part of that. Look, out of the greatest inventions, the greatest outcomes, the greatest innovations have always come from a still mind. And I tell that to, leaders all the time. Let's build in the still mind, but from that stillness, then let's look at how we're going to disrupt things.
I do believe that, there are so many limiting beliefs that we have with ourselves, and slowly peeling that off layer by layer with stillness, it's amazing results await. I'm so happy that Brenda and Cindy is mentioning this, because I mentioned Cindy last night. Someone asked about our summit, and then they said, as leaders, how do we go to the summit and be immersed into change? Do I listen and then work on my team? And now I can share that it is what Dragonfly is you come and you're able to reflect on yourself.
Yeah.
As a leader and as a person, whether it be through listening or understanding your own patterns of listening too.
Yeah.
I don't want to use work because it sounds like a big task, but you have fun with yourself.
You're going to have fun. You're going to have disruption.
Yeah.
And it's all the seekers. We're calling the seekers. And actually, we're calling the knowers too, because when you come, you're going to know that you don't know.
And moving forward, with everything we're going to be doing now, it's just everything is tailor-made now. Even all these brands is just becoming more niche. And I think that's what life is, the way that you go into a space and to learn. I think each person gets something out of it, and it might look like one talk, Brenda will be having a talk at Dragonfly. Can you set us up as to what's going to be happening at Dragonfly this year at our summit?
Well, sure. I'm going to talk about the inside job of leadership. Where does it start? Why is it important? How does it make a difference? How do you embrace it on a daily basis? And what can be the outcomes if you do that? And it changes our mindset and our perspective, which is where all great leadership starts.
Brenda's also written 11 best-selling books, and you can also make sure you pick up a copy. We'll be having them for sale. Your book, Forgotten Choice, is going to be one of the key ones as well. So I'm very, very excited to have you here with us in Bangkok. A lot of our leadership friends are looking forward to having your insights, not just hearing, your wisdom, but also I'm excited for the takeaways that we're going to be able to go and put into practice, like you said, on a daily basis and see how that evolves.
I really think this one is powerful because it's about well-being, inner work of leadership, inner work of life. And well-being is no longer a nice to have. It really is a life and leadership imperative. And Dragonfly sets it up perfectly for that. So I'm really excited for anybody who's going. It's really something worth investing time and energy in.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you're going to be joining our mission, and we're excited to be seeing you at Dragonfly. I know many of you find this content of value. And if only if you do, please do share and do comment and do save this video to come back and watch again in the future. And do join us at our transformational summit where you disrupt and transform yourself from within. And that would definitely impact yourself, your relationships, your teams and your companies and the world at the same time. 27th, 28th of September at the Paragon Hall. We're going to be posting the site on our comments or everything about Brenda, about the summit in the comment section. So do go check that out. All right, Brenda.
Thank you so much.
More of you to come. Bye-bye,
Yeah.
Brenda.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Welcome.